Good evening. I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, January 28, 2025, and we are starting our meeting tonight at 7:02 p.m. I'm Mayor Betancourt. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to, a few announcements before we go to the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our meeting tonight is being recorded live, as always, on PBD TV. Nice to have them with us. Our minutes for the meeting tonight are being taken by our recording secretary, Laura Bowe. And during our public participation, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, the microphone would be open. Also, we have remote access. Anybody following us on live stream would like to be invited into the meeting, please raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting at that time as well. So I'd like to first start off, if we could all please rise for a moment of silence, and then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we are going to have students from the the Welch School joining us for the Pledge of Allegiance. So please, moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no objection from the council, I'd like to move out of order a bit today and go right to the superintendent's report, item 5.1, which is our student presentation by the Welch School. So, Dr. Vidal, I'll turn over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are very honored today to have our wonderful students from the Welch School who are enjoying their beautiful new building. It's wonderful to see them today, and I see a number of their family members and teachers that have come to support them. We're so excited to hear about the wonderful Welch Way, and I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Massa and to our students. And when you talk, just make sure that you speak into the microphone, and why don't you say your name and grade so that everyone can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us tonight. We're really honored to be here. Don't worry, they will be very articulate and say their name and their grade. They have a whole plan and presentation prepared for you. So, without further ado, to the Wildcats. Slide it over.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight on behalf of Ms. Massa and the wonderful Welch. My name is Ana Laura Cosero, and I am the secretary of the Welch School. Last year, I had the honor of serving in student government as a 4th grader while the school was under construction. This year, the 5th graders are taking this role and making it better than ever. Unfortunately, our Vice President, Jayla Duran Vargas, couldn't be with us today. But standing with me are my co-student government officials, Alexander Morley, Charlotte Stoller, Room 24 Mayor, Giovanni Pena, Room 23 Mayor, Abel Madrano, Room 22 Mayor. We would love to tell you about some amazing things happening at the Welch School where there's something for everybody.
Donde hay algo para todos.
Onde há algo para todos.
Hello, I am Gio, the Room 23 Mayor. This year, our 5th grade teachers have focused on universal design for learning. During certain assignments in class, students have the option to choose between writing a paper, creating a slideshow, or even creating a comic, which you can see on the slideshow. This gives students the creative freedom to enjoy working on their assignments and putting our own twist on them. We have also been working on independent work. For example, last week my teacher, Mr. Stoller, gave us a math sheet that we have never seen before and told us we can work together and use all of our resources in order to figure out how to do the problems. I watched a video on how to find area of an object and then worked through the problems myself. After completing the assignment on my own, I felt very proud of myself and felt like I did all the work on my own. I really like this way of learning.
Hi, my name is Alex and I am the president of the Welch School. PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. Miss Massa shares a quote on the announcements every morning. Always remember to be respectful, responsible, and safe. It's the Welch way. Based on this quote, students are given PBIS tickets when they're showing responsible, respectful, and safe behavior. That is why we call it the Welch way. At the end of each month, each grade's tickets go into a bin, and every student has a chance to win a prize if their name is called. We even have a staff winner. The random drawing makes it fair so that every student has an opportunity to win. The Welch students love to show their great behavior in order to earn PBIS tickets each day. The Welch is also in the process of creating a kindness carnival. This is where students can earn tickets to attend a fun carnival made right inside of our school.
My name is Charlotte, and I am the mayor of Room 24. One of our favorite things at the Welch is all of our clubs. There's really something for everyone. The Welch School offers a countless amount of clubs. For example, bowling club, chess club, kindness club, anime club, art club, just to name a few. Every student is able to find something that they enjoy and that expresses their unique personality. Students can join any club they want, and it is a great way for us to find our interests and things that make us happy. I have been in the bowling club, and it has really made my bowling skills stronger. I am really excited to do it again this year. The Welch School celebrates a Student of the Month from every class. The Student of the Month is someone who does a great job in class, is a good friend, and always follows the Welch way. The students feel like they are congratulated for all their hard work that they do in class and gives us a goal to work towards. Everyone wants to win Student of the Month. The Student of the Month is awarded with a medal and a certificate explaining why you got the award, and your families are invited to come watch. Not only do we have Student of the Month, but we have a Wildcat of the Day that is announced on the speaker each morning. Wildcat of the Day is a complete surprise where teachers and students can be recognized. This makes students want to do the right thing in order to have their name called. For example, a Wildcat shout-out of the day that student government agreed on was Miss Drover, one of the 4th grade teachers. Miss Drover always tries to lighten the mood even when she is feeling down. She's always kind to everyone no matter what. She always tries to make schoolwork fun.
Our Wildcat of the Day happens to be here today. Thanks, Ms. Drover.
Hi, my name is Abel Majano. I'm the mayor of Room 22. This year, the Welch School uses pods. Students switch for subjects like math, social studies, and science in order to practice for middle school. This gives us the chance to experience new teachers, different students in our classes, and a different learning environment. Not only does this prepare us for different classes and new teachers next year, but it is teaching us the responsibility of walking through classes and how to act in hallways between classes. Pods are a lot of fun, and they are helping us become respectful 5th graders and ready for middle school.
It is our pleasure to have shared with you some of our favorite and exciting things happening at the wonderful Welch School. We would be happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, well, first, that was terrific. Each of you did an amazing job outlining how special the Welch School is, so congratulations to each of you. And I wanted to thank you on behalf of all of us here. You all were amazing, your teachers, Ms. Massa, with everything that you went through the last couple of years as we were constructing the new Welch School. And it was amazing to have all of you there, and really happy with how everything turned out. And I know it's a special school, and now it's a much better building for all of you to learn and things. So That's great. And I want to be invited to the Kids Carnival, so you got to let us know when the Kids Carnival is coming, okay? You promise? You got to let us know. Any questions?
It's on Friday.
This Friday?
This Friday, through the efforts of the PB Ed Foundation, we got a grant, which is how we are hosting the Kindness Carnival. We were able to fund all sorts of different activities for the kids to experience when they are demonstrating the Welch Way and being overachievers in their academics.
Yes, and it's wonderful that you took on these leadership positions in your school. It's very important to speak up and be leaders, so that's great. So the Kindness Carnival, Friday. Okay, all right. Any questions for our students? Mr. Hockman.
Yeah, thank you. Not so much by way of questions, but I just want to congratulate you all for presenting yourself so adult-like and so professional. It's like listening to staff members and not students. You guys all look wonderful, and you all sounded wonderful. And thank you for letting us know what's happening at the Welch School. It's an exciting year for you guys with the new construction being completed and all the wonderful opportunities that you have. So congratulations, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Amico.
Thank you, through the chair, Ms. Massa. Parents, kids, thank you. That was awesome. As Mr. Hockman said, you guys are great speakers. I mean, you may have a future in that. Did I hear you have a bowling club?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that the mayor is a great bowler? And I think you should invite him down someday to bowl. He can really throw that ball.
Thank you, Mr. Amico.
Welcome.
Any other comments for our students? Mr. Swanson.
Thank you very much. Ms. Massa, obviously awesome job you and your staff are doing for our students. Students, as Mr. Hockman and Mr. Miko said, you guys did a phenomenal job presenting, acting like adults, acting like leaders. I was really interested to hear about the pod aspect of things. How do you guys like that? Transitioning between classes and being prepared for when you come to this big school. How do you guys like that? What do you think of it?
We like it a lot.
Yeah?
So that we can be prepared for middle school.
It's a great answer, and I appreciate you understanding why they put it in place for you. You guys are leaders now in your school. As you come in here, I hope that you take that leadership and bring it here as well. There's going to be more kids, more students from across the city, but take what you're learning and bring it here, be leaders here as well, and you guys are going to grow, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for coming tonight. It really was an interesting presentation. It was good to hear what you had to tell us, and you did a wonderful job. I do have a question. How do you run your student government at the school? Do you meet weekly? Do you have subcommittees?
We're not in the subcommittee land yet. But they are an active member of our student council, so it's because of their involvement with student government that helps us run our school council. And so that meets monthly. They meet with us monthly with that. But they are the voice of the students, if you will.
I was just going to ask if your friends in school come to you and say, hey, I want you to talk about, they do, they bring that up. What kind of things do they have you bring to the meeting? What are some of the issues you work on? Can you think of any?
Go ahead.
What was the question again?
What are some of the things that your classmates ask you to work on as a member of student government?
Sometimes they ask me about lunch, and I've heard from a couple people that they want us to start like helping, like how some like, what do you call it? Guidance counseling. We were thinking about it, and a kid once came up to me and asked if he could talk to me, but I couldn't do anything yet. But we are working on trying to do that.
Very, very good. Very good.
They're in the early stages of beginning what we're calling a peer mentorship for some of the younger students, so that they can start to model their leadership skills to some of our younger students as well.
Very good.
And lunch is always a key thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, You have that. A lot of people want to know about lunch, and do you have some lunchtime meetings on the days with the really special meal, the good food that you like? That's good. Okay, well, I guess, what are the 2 or 3 mayors there, and president? That's great. We'll get out of our chairs eventually, and you'll be sitting here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. All right, great job, students. Anything, Dr. Vidala, before we...
Sure, I just want you to know that your class, and you may not know this, has probably made Peabody history as 5th graders at the Welch. So every year, we look at our 5th graders at each elementary school to be leaders. And they've had 4 years or 5 years of elementary school, and then their last year, they get to be the leaders of the school. You've had an added responsibility. You've been the oldest ones at the Welch School for 3 consecutive years. And you're the only one that we've had to put that very difficult responsibility on. And I can see by the way that you speak and the way you engage with each other that you've really done a great job growing up and developing your leadership skills over time. We're very proud of you. Parents, you should also be very proud of the teachers and of your students. It's really impressive to see how you've grown during the time that we've seen you. So thank you for presenting. You did a great job.
Absolutely.
I'm also super impressed that you coordinate your knee brace with your dress. It works really good. For the Welch boys.
All right, always a terrific way to start the meeting. Now there's some items today. We do have the organization of the school committee, a couple of votes, a couple of nominations wanted to move forward with. So if we could first start with a motion to adopt the bylaws for this upcoming school year. I'd open that up for a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Dunn, I've heard the motion for adoption of the school committee bylaws for this school year, or for this calendar year. Seconded by Mr. Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you. Next, we're going to go to our voting order for this year, and Mr. Higgins has, I think, our numbers here. So when we start off with, well, I don't know, we got yelled at last time that I was supposed to. So we got seat number 1 is Mr. Hockman. So I'm just going to pick again here. All right. So I got yelled at last time. All right, so this is for Mr. Hockman.
Seat 1.
Mr. Hockman here.
Yeah.
And you are seat 2. All right. This will be for Mr. Amico. We should go in alphabetical order. All right, Mr. Amico. 6. Same spot. All right, Mrs. Carpenter. Mrs. Carpenter. Number 1. Randy. Mrs. Dunn. All right, I got a good one for you. 3, 4, 5. How's that? 5. All right. Mr. Olympio will be seat number 3. And Mr. Swanson will be seat number 4. That was so much drama, I don't know what to do with myself. That was intense. Okay. All right, next item in our organization for this calendar year, we do have a vice chair. Do we have any nominations for the position of vice chair? Yep, sorry, probably going a little fast. So the position of vice chair, do we have any nominations for the 2025 Peabody School Committee vice chair? I'll turn to you, Mr. Swanson.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to nominate Joseph Amico for vice chair. Friend of mine and a reason I am on this committee, so I'd like to do an awesome job if everybody can support him in that role.
Choice. Okay,
Motion.
we have a nomination of Mr. Amico. A motion, Mr. Hockman.
Motion to close the nominations.
Heard the motion to close the nominations by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. That's a unanimous vote. Mr. Swanson, would you like to make the motion for Mr. Amico?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to elect Mr. Joseph Amico as vice chairman for the following year.
You've heard the motion by Mr. Swanson to approve Mr. Amico as our vice chair for 2025, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Joseph Amico.
Mr. Hockman.
Joseph Fredo Amico.
Mr. Olympio.
Joseph Amico.
Mr. Swanson.
Joseph Amico.
Mrs. Dunn.
Joseph Amico.
Mr. Amico.
Present.
Congratulations, Mr. Amico. Congratulations. That hard campaign you ran worked out great. And next, we also I'd open it up for nominations for the 2025 Peabody School Committee Secretary for this year. Mrs. Carpenter, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to nominate Mr. John Swanson as our new secretary.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Motion by Mr. Hockman to close the nominations.
So moved.
Seconded by Mr. Olympio. That's a unanimous vote. Mrs. Carpenter, can you make that in the form of a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate John Swanson as the current school year's secretary.
Second.
Thank you. Further motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mrs. Dunn to elect Mr. John Swanson as the secretary for 2025. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter.
John Swanson.
Mr. Hockman.
John Swanson.
Mr. Olympio.
John Swanson.
Mr. Swanson.
Present.
Mrs. Dunn.
John Swanson.
Mr. Amico.
John Swanson.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Thank you. Well, thank you both for taking on these roles, important roles. Before we go to the minutes, I did want to introduce, it's great we have our newly elected City Council President, Julie Daigle, with us today at the meeting, so I wanted to welcome our Council President. Thank you for being here, Julie. Next, we have minutes from the January 14th, 2025 regular school committee meeting. I'd open those up for discussion and a vote.
Motion to receive and approve.
Thank you. Further motion by Mrs. Dunn for approval of the January 14th, 2025 regular school committee meeting minutes, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Amico.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Well, next we'll go to item number 3, approval of bills. Actually, before I go to approval of bills over to Mr. Olympio, in terms of the subcommittee assignments, I feel like we've made great progress again this year. and everybody has done their role very well in terms of the subcommittee work, and I wanted to move forward with the same chairs and same committee makeup in 2025. Certainly we can make adjustments a little bit over the course of the year, but I like moving forward to continue the work we're doing and maintain those committees. So thank you for that. Mr. Olympio, I'll turn it over to you for item number 3, approval of bills.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5935 in the amount of $153,274.93, dated January 28, 2025, subject to audit.
Second.
Great, thank you, Mr. Olympio. You've heard his motion for approval of warrant number 5935. It was seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Amico.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5937 in the amount of $1,661,070.08, dated January 28, 2025, subject to audit.
Second.
Great, thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter for the approval of warrant number 5937. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Abstain.
Mr. Amico.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Item number 4, continued business. We do have one item, the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School MSBA project update. Mrs. Dunn, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a second meeting of the school building committee last week, and it was actually a very productive meeting. The members had some pretty good discussions about what's going on as far as our deliverables schedule. Dr. Vidal spoke with the members to let them know what we had already turned in and what was coming up. And then the mayor spoke with everyone about the work that needs to be done with the committee. We had Dan Doucette and Mr. Rippon speak about the need for the subcommittees going forward that have to come up with the criteria and qualifications that the building committee would be looking for people who are going to apply to become the OPM, and then later on the design team, and after that the construction. So it was really a very informative meeting because there is a lot to learn about the process, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment. I'm happy to report that, and I will let Dr. Vidal and the mayor speak about this as well, but today we had a meeting regarding the enrollment, and that is a piece of very important information that the MSBA takes in a lot of data and then calculates what the size of the school should be as far as how many students need to be accommodated. So it was an interesting meeting. The data presented was great. The questions that came up during that meeting were actually very interesting. And I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to, say some more about that.
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Yes, very helpful meeting today, very informative from the MSBA. They have a whole methodology on how they identify what the design enrollment will be, and then we share more information with them. They were very receptive to the unique pieces of Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, how we have had a comprehensive high school, and we're a member of a vocational district, and so they were very open to that. We also talked a little bit about how we've seen a little bit of a dip across the Commonwealth in enrollment due to COVID, and we want to make sure that that doesn't impact our design enrollment and that we design a building that is not overcrowded upon opening. So it was a very good meeting. We also turned in today our maintenance and capital planning document. So we've met all of our obligations for this round, which we're due today. And the next piece for us will be bringing to the committee a recommendation, this committee here, a recommendation about asking the City Council to appropriate money for the feasibility study. And that's when it really gets exciting, because then we start looking at the site and the design and the different aspects of where the building might be, and we'll hire an OPM, which is an owner's project manager. So that's when it really picks up, and we anticipate that will happen early spring and into the summer. And that will be about a 1.5 to 2 year process. Mr. Mayor?
I think you explained things very well, Dr. Vidal, both you and Mrs. Dunn, so thank you.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the high school will be our very first community meeting. And at that time, members of the public will be invited to come, meet the school building committee members, get an overview of the process, hear about where we are in the process, and then we'll have a very brief question and answer period. And I'll say it's going to be brief because we don't know everything at the moment, but there are a lot of pieces of this that people really are interested in and they want to know what's happening. So this is one of our outreach efforts to make sure that people have that opportunity to talk to the people that are actually working with this and can give them some information about where we go from here. So always, any questions, feel free to ask, and looking forward to next Wednesday.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. And we'll be getting out information, social media, reaching out to the newspapers to publicize the first community meeting that Mrs. Dunn mentioned. PBD TV will be there covering the meeting, and it is a great opportunity to hear from people as to what their ideas, what their vision may be for the new high school, things we should be looking at, get to meet some of the city officials and elected officials that will be taking part as committee members, and also just to learn a little bit about the process. We are in the very early stages, but there's some important items coming up. There's important items that are already taken place, and there's some other important items that are coming up here in the next few weeks that we want to fill people in on. So that'll be 7 p.m. next Wednesday, February 5th at 7 p.m. at the PBD Veterans Memorial High School auditorium. So hopefully you're able to join us, and we're going to get the word out a little bit more here in the next few days. Okay, Mrs. Dunn.
One thing I forgot. I'm working with our IT folks, with Chris Mitchell and Brian Condon, and we're going to have a website about the project up and running. This is something we will do as like a preliminary website. Once an OPM is chosen, they will take it over and be working on a web page with links for the people in the public to look at it. But that's in the works, and hopefully it'll be up before next week. Fingers crossed. I have great faith in those guys.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you.
Okay, before I turn it over to our superintendent for the completion of his report, I did want to mention with us, as always, our two assistant superintendents, Dr. Kelly Chase, Dr. Mark Higgins, as well as our school business manager, Sam Rippon. They're always at our meetings. Nice to have them there. And Dr. Vidal, I'll turn it over to you and your team for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a wonderful presentation from the Welch School students to kick off the meeting, and now we'll move into item number 2, which is our Chapter 70 allocation and the FY26 school budget. So last Wednesday, Governor Healy put out her initial budget, the first draft of the governor's budget. That will go into the Senate and then the House Ways and Means, or the House Ways and Means and then the Senate, and it'll go to conference committee, and eventually we'll have the final budget. But we have our initial numbers. So I'd like to share those today. You'll notice this slide comes directly from the Department of Education, and it compares FY25, which is the current fiscal year, with next year's budget, FY26. So the circled number in red is our preliminary Chapter 70 allocation from the state. Last year we received just over $37 million, and this year we're up over $38 million, which is a $1 million, $52,081 increase, about 2.84%. And then we have the required district contribution right around $60 million for a total minimum net school spending of $98.6 million. So if I just go to the second slide here, comparing the left-hand side to the right-hand side. Last year, we voted $94,577,540. $37 million were from Chapter 70 and $57.5 million from the municipal contribution. What we're looking at next year, now this is not the budget number, this is a net school spending amount that takes into a lot of things. There are a lot of items on the city side as well. So this may or may not be, probably not be the voted number, but it's just the placeholder number that we have here as the minimum net school spending number, about $98.6 million. That's preliminary net school spending, with $38 million coming from the state in Chapter 70, and then we'll work on the budget to identify what the district's contribution will be, or the city's contribution. A couple items that I'd just like to highlight. We see a decrease in enrollment, so I'm just going to go back to the previous slide, you see a change in 131 students that is a decrease, and it's a little bit misleading because we actually saw an increase of about 40 students this year. And that decrease represents a different way, a different methodology that the state is counting preschool students. So we had 252 preschool students attending our schools last year. The way they counted it this year is they counted the students that do not pay tuition, which was 82 students. We received tuition from the other 170 students. And so this year, moving forward, the state, and I believe this is a desire to identify some universal pre-K options, but we will not be receiving funding for students that pay tuition. So any student that pays tuition, that is the funds that we receive. If they do not pay tuition, we'll receive funding from the state. So that just came out this week. So that's a little different. It looks like we have a decrease in our enrollment, but it's really just a different way of calculating things. So as we look moving forward, our FY26 budget draft 1 will be ready in February. Working very closely with Mr. Rippin so that we can work on some of these numbers and see where our budget lands. Of course, our typical drivers include special ed, out-of-district tuitions, which we're seeing increases in those areas. Health insurance, which has been going up quite a bit, and that's something that the city has been working on as well, and of course transportation. So those are our 3 big budget drivers, and then other areas that we consider is our collective bargaining agreements that will be coming in this year, the desire to bring the center school back next year, and the end of the EA shelter grant. So we received the emergency shelter grant money over the past fiscal year. That will be drying up. We are seeing that a number of students are moving to more permanent housing, and they'll be eliminating those shelters in the hotels, and that will be something that we'll take a look at as well. So I'll pause here if there are any questions about the budget. My next item is about specifically the center school. So before, I don't want to get into a conversation that sort of overlaps. So if there's any questions on these first 2 slides about the allocation and sort of how we're building the budget, we'd be happy to answer those questions now.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dr. Vidala. Just allocations. One that stands out is the EA shelter grants that we're obviously funded. Those weren't counted in our student counts and that you submitted in the past. As families transition from shelters, which we received grants on, and they get to permanent housing, if we qualify for Chapter 70, is that recalculated? Is that part of the calculations that I've done?
So any student that arrived last school year, after October 1st, was not counted in the Chapter 70 enrollment. So we received a supplemental budget, and that money we were able to carry forward into this year. So we had some money that we were able to use this school year. Those students who were all enrolled before October 1st this year are now counted in the Chapter 70 enrollment and will receive the funding through that. So as that money, the supplemental money goes away, we'll see the students reflected in the Chapter 70 allocation.
Awesome. Thank you. That's exactly what I was asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Any other questions, Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, not sure if it's to Dr. Vidala or to Mr. Rippin. I see some of the drivers that you identify in this are going to be transportation. I think are we due for a new transportation contract? And
Yes. It'll be going out this week.
Okay.
So we have worked with Dan Doucette, and Mr. Rippin has done a really good job of putting together that request for proposals, and that will hit the street this week, and we have hopefully a number of competitive bids so that we'll be able to keep that number down.
So we should, through the mayor to you. So can we anticipate that we're going to have a sufficient amount of time to develop a contract for transportation before we complete the budget?
Yes, we anticipate that'll be done this spring.
Oh, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you. I have a question regarding transportation. When you're working on that contract, is the amount based upon our current method of transportation as far as routes and numbers of students?
That is the assumption, yes.
Okay. And is there any thought to looking at that to see if there are any ways that we can adjust routes and change things to save some money?
The answer also is yes.
Okay.
Just so you know, I've invested in a software called TransFinder. Again, right now we're piloting it with our in-district special education routes, but they already, our vendor, Healy Bus, runs it. The reason I'm piloting it in district is it's uncertain who will be our new provider. You know, it's likely to be Healy, but it's not guaranteed to be Healy. But my expectation is for the subsequent year that we look to incorporate this routing software to try to find deficiencies where possible.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is a center school update. And so, as you know, we took this center school offline this year to make some very necessary repairs, and we're working on that with our new facilities director, Jim Politano, and we've had a number of meetings with our facilities subcommittee to make sure that that work is being completed. We're able to disperse the students and the faculty for this school year across the other 7 elementary schools, and we really worked, and I give a lot of credit to Dr. Higgins, individually with families to make sure that their needs were met during that transition. So as we look to return kids to school next year, we wanted to make sure we did a survey of both the families and the students, and the faculty, to see what the desire is around what their schooling is next year. We understand that the transition from one elementary school to another elementary school is a difficult transition many times for families, and we want to make sure we minimize that and include as much parent choice as we can. So we asked 4 questions, and then the final question was about what they would like to do next year. So the first one was around transition, and the statement is the transition to the new school has been positive, and overwhelmingly 93% of our families agreed that the transition was a positive transition, and that was very helpful. We did a lot of work, pre-work, to make sure that families knew where they were going. We were setting up transportation routes when available, and families had choice if they wanted to utilize the open enrollment process to choose a different school. The second piece was around communication. So the communication at the new school is clear and informative. 95% of families agree. Number 3 was transportation to the new school is helpful for my family. 83% of families agree. And overall, this has been a positive school year for my child. 95% of our center school students in their new school have found that this has been a positive school year. So we're very happy with those results, and we truly believe that the positive experience for our families is a tribute to the staff at the schools that receive the students, as well as the leadership of the receiving schools, to create a welcoming environment for our families. And it's really a great sense of pride for our schools and our staff that we have results like this. And what we really found was that the principals and the teachers in those buildings went above and beyond, and I think we saw it earlier today at the Welch School. One of the former center school students is the president of his class, and he's on the basketball team. And so, we didn't want to bring the center school offline, but when we did, we wanted to make sure that the experience for those children was a positive one. So the next big piece was we asked students what their desire was for next year. Now, we take this information with a grain of salt. We didn't ask, too many details. It's just really where do parents prefer to be, and how do we work with that? So, surprisingly, the majority of students would like to stay where they are. So we look at each grade level, K1, 2, 3, and 4, because they'll all be moving up to the next grade. And about 75% of students would like to stay in their school. Parents prefer not to have another transition. And so we broke it down by grade, and this big red circle here. We have 12 students in kindergarten, 10 students in first grade, 19 second grade, 19 in third grade, and 22 students in fourth grade that really want to go back to the center school as their top choice, and that's a total of 82 students. So again, I say we take this information with a grain of salt. This is what the parents have desired. Now, understanding that whatever this committee decides and how we move forward, we'll tip the scales could tip the scales in either direction. So this is just baseline information that we're getting right now. So that was a little bit of a surprise to us that so many students did want to stay in their current school. We also surveyed staff, And again, another little surprise here, we sent out 32 emails to staff requesting their desire. We have 28 responses. Of the 4 people that did not respond, none of them were classroom teachers. They were either special ed or specialist teachers or guidance or something of that effect. But we had 8 teachers that were surveyed that want to return to the center school. We have 13 that would like to stay in their current positions. We have 4 teachers that would like to explore their options. And then we have three teachers that intend on retiring. So this was just another piece of information that was interesting to us, and again, a little bit of a surprise, the way that this came out. Just a couple other things that I wanted to share, other relevant information. We have our integrated preschool in the annex right now. In addition to our integrated preschool, we currently have 138 students who are enrolled at the integrated preschool. They're currently 138 are in the annex at the center school this year. And some are AM and some are PM, and then we have a small number that are full day. In addition to our integrated preschool, we have our Passos Avante preschool enrollment, which is 132 students across the district. We have 4 classrooms at the south, we have 2 classrooms at the west, and we have 1 classroom at the Carroll. Our current wait list, which is interesting, is 228 students who are on the wait list at Passos. These students include 133 at the South, 85 at the West, and 10 at the Carroll. Now, part of that is that the Passos Avante preschool is a full-day program from 7:15 to 4:15, so it's a little different than our integrated preschool. It is a longer day, and so for many of our working families, it is a more desirable program, but we are just limited to the number of classrooms that we currently have. Governor Healy's agenda includes making early childhood education and childcare more affordable and accessible to students and their families. And so she does have a grant out. The administration has a grant called Gateway to Pre-K, which offers grants to gateway cities. So we can explore this. We have not looked into this just yet because we have not had the room to be able to bring on more pre-K students. But that is an opportunity. So we did have a meeting 2 weeks ago with the subcommittee, which asked just to look at a couple different possibilities. What are some options that we can look at, and thinking about how we bring back the center school and what are some options. So, and some of these have budget implications, so I'll just share these options without judgment and just talk about what they mean. And so when I say option 1 is to bring back the full elementary school, which would be 27 FTEs, 12 classroom teachers, 2 per grade, the principal, assistant principal, 2 special educators, 2 ELL teachers, a reading teacher, a guidance counselor, specialist, food service, two food services, an additional custodian, and bringing back the clerk and the nurse. That would be 27 FTEs. That wouldn't necessarily add 27 FTEs to the budget. It might reallocate those within the budget. So that's why there's no numbers that are attached to this. Option 2 would be a phased-in approach. So how do we return to full enrollment? The goal would be, of course, to return to full enrollment, but starting maybe at an abbreviated group, we could use 17 FTEs or 6 classroom teachers, 1 per grade, just a principal, a special ed teacher, an ELL teacher, reading guidance, the specialist teachers, and then, of course, food service, custodian, clerk, and nurse. Option 3, something that was thrown out there, was to bring back kindergarten only with grades 1 and 2. I'd say that's probably the least desirable option. We typically like our kindergarten kids to have other role models throughout the school, but that is something we had talked about. And then option 4, which was not discussed at length, but it is a possibility to explore other options such as creating an early childhood center or bringing in revenue generating programs, etc. So these are wildly different options. We don't have dollar figures attached to them. Certainly we need a lot more discussion, but I wanted to provide as much information as we had now, and then as we build the budget, we can look at integrating any of these options that the committee looks at. And I'm happy to answer questions or have any comments.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. I'll open up Mr. Miko.
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Vidala, thank you to your team and all the staff and all the parents for their flexibility. You said it earlier, it's not easy to transition, and it's certainly not easy to transition if you're a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid going to a new school, and for the parents, the anxiety, the getting on a bus and so forth, especially where know, Center School is a neighborhood school, you know, and so thank you to your team. I do have two quick questions, and then I want to give my opinion on where I stand on this. How many students through this year, how many students didn't, because the number was 330 that took the survey, how many students did not, or parents did not take the survey? Because I would imagine that we were probably close to 400 students, so that...
Yes, I'm
just saying...
Yeah, I can get that information for you. I don't have it, but there were close to 400. We did eliminate the 5th grade as well, but I'll get that number for you.
Okay, thank you. So I was just looking at that, and the second part was, were there guarantees to teachers that if they went to another school that they did not have to come back to the center? Was there any? I'm just trying to...
No, and so what we had said as teachers, we say to all staff if they were displaced, similar to what we did with the Welch School, where we had some teachers displaced, we said if there is a position at the school and you'd like to remain in that, you have that option. You also, so these numbers here are just baseline, what are you feeling right now? We would never assign somebody. We would go through the whole transfer process, and we'd work with our union around that. So there were no guarantees, but you know, if there was a position available, we would give that person the right to stay, or we would give that person the right to return if there's a position open. So everything is dependent upon what is open, but we try to really work with people because it's good practice to be able to give people options, and you know, we would never want to force somebody into something, and I'd hate to see us lose a really good teacher because we forced them one way or the other. So we really try to work together with the union and meet with them individually, and hopefully we can meet, you know, same way we did with the parents.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I think that, you know, as a teacher, I think that's great communication and great respect for that staff, who I dearly care about, and many of us, all of us do, I think.
I'm sorry, Mr. Meek, could I just add to that, if you wouldn't mind? Because the very first people we spoke to when we really felt the need, based on what our reports were for the facility and the center school, that we really needed to look strongly at closing the school for a year to do all the maintenance work that we needed to do, was we did go and speak with the teachers. And Dr. Vidal and I met with the teachers on multiple occasions, but I remember they were the first group we talked to. Eric Blake, as the union leader, was there as well. I'm trying to remember. We did really stress flexibility, and really, you know, we knew what we were asking was a lot of the teachers and staff there. You know, I may have, and you know, I don't want to put my, but you know, I certainly want teachers to speak for themselves. But I certainly did speak about if you are transferred and you're happy, we would try to make that work for you where you stay, and not force people, and Dr. Vidal spoke to that. But I really, out of respect to the teachers, wanted that option for them, where if they did go to a new school and were comfortable and wanted to stay, that they would have the right to do that. And then we would determine, you know, who would come back and all of those type of questions. But I did want to speak to that because that was something I spoke about when I met with the teachers. I told them right to the group that, you know, we wanted them to have flexibility and land where they were comfortable. Yeah. And so I did, you know, I wanted to make sure I was heard on that too, because that was something that certainly the teachers certainly could have taken away from what I said to them, that there would be those options for them.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. So, and the reason why I asked that is, one thing that really sets, I mean, there are a lot of things that set us apart from other districts and other cities. I mean, this is an unbelievable city to live in, raise your kids in. I think one of the things that we do right at the school level, we do many things right, but one of the things that we do well is we have elementary schools in neighborhoods. You know, the Brown School neighborhood, the South School neighborhood, the 3 schools in West Peabody, the Welch. You know, we just saw them today, that community. And that's what I want to bring out today, is that the Center School is more than a building. It's a community. It's the only school that is in the center of the city. You know, when you think of the geographic nature of all our schools, it's the only one right there in the middle. It's in a neighborhood that, I'll be honest with you, we purchased our home partly because we were a stone's throw from the Center School and the Higgins School, and it was amazing to be able to just walk your kids to school and pick them up to school. And a lot of the neighbors that have moved in over the last couple of years, they see this brand-new, shiny school here, not brand new, it's 10 years old, but it's still brand new as far as I'm concerned, and they know that the center school is a softball throw away. That's a great selling point for the Emerson Park neighborhood. So personally, if I'm looking at these options here, I'm going with option number 1, because again, it's more than a school to me. It's more than a school to our neighborhood in the Emerson Park area and the people who live on Lowell Street and across Forest Street. And it really is. I mean, I just listed some names of families that I would not have met. My family would not have met if it weren't for the center school. The Hockmans, the Buckleys, the Lamazities, the Palins, the Scalise, the O'Donnells, the Tediscos, the Donnellys, the Pennies, the Carpenters. You know, for me, like I said, we do a lot of things right here in the city, but I'm a huge advocate for our neighborhood schools, and I know it's difficult to operate 8 elementary neighborhood schools, but you know what? It's worth every penny. So I'm looking for a full return, as many teachers and many staff as we can get over there. And, you know, we're not building it, but if we show up with staff, they will come. So that's what I'm hoping. So I hope everyone else feels the same way.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Anybody else have any comments for Dr. Vidal at this time? Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Thank you, Mr. Amico. That was quite a list that my family was on top of. I'm very flattered. Yeah, so first of all, I do want to talk a little bit about what is before us and what the center school was and what it will be again. It's going to be a neighborhood elementary school, right? I mean, for me, I'll cut to the chase. Option 1 is going to be ultimately what we get to, whether it's option 1 or option 2. You know, the numbers seem to line up with the number of kids that want to return to that school and the number of staff members that want to return to that school for option 2. It's too early to tell, you know, where that's going to be, because I think, you know, based upon what we decide, those numbers may change. They may change dramatically. But even with a full elementary school, the center school is going to look different in 2025 or 2026 than it did in 2022 and 2023. The integrated preschool will remain in the annex. The annex used to occupy kindergarten and first grade in the center school. It will continue to be occupied by the integrated preschool. The classrooms for instruction at the repaired center school, I don't think we can call it the new center school, but the repaired center school will be 2 per grade, which is going to be very different from what it was. I mean, most grades had 3 or 4 classrooms. There were a lot of specialists not using classrooms. We're hopefully I think we're getting away from that when the school reopens to full capacity. There's going to be a little bit of we're going to need to do some work as a committee to look at some boundary lines to see how we get some kids who are currently in the center school boundary into different elementary school boundaries. That's, I think, that will be part of this plan, knowing that the integrated preschool is moved permanently into the annex. As we sit here today, I don't know that I have enough information. I think we need to make a decision by about March 1st to give family and staff sufficient time to make an informed decision. I would ask for those that filled out the surveys, if you've changed your position or if you didn't fill out the survey, that you either contact the school administration, maybe Dr. Higgins would be the point person on that, or send an email or some sort of communication as to what you would like your family to experience in the 25-26 school year. And if we can get that information sometime in February, that would be nice for us, I think, beneficial for us. And I think I'd like to see it where I think there's more information that I certainly need, and maybe put this up for a vote on the agenda at our 2nd February meeting, and then we can make a decision as to what we're going to do. And like I said, give the administration, the faculty, the teachers, the community, the neighborhood, the parents, the students, ample time to understand what their school year is going to look like in 25-26.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Carpenter.
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Vidala, thank you for the information that you provided to us. I have a couple of statements to follow up on my colleagues, but I do have a question first about the surveys. How were those sent out? Were they email? Were they U.S. mail?
They were sent out via email in multiple languages.
Okay.
Yep, so people were, it was similar to how we sent out the communication the previous year about where would you like to go. So it was very similar, and we were able to get almost 100% getting to where they wanted to go, so we used the same methodology.
Okay. I agree. I think the option 1 and option 2 is where I would personally land. I think that neighborhood schools are a huge benefit, especially to our city. Thank you for being on the list, Mr. Amico. My daughter did go to the Center School. But what I do see is giving people options and having children and adults move jobs and make transitions. It's important that we're respectful of that. And possibly option 2 is going to happen if we are able to accommodate all of those transitions, but still making option 1 the ultimate goal. Seeing the Center School filled up again with its repairs, looking better than it ever has before, still being available to all of the new families that may move in there. I personally couldn't see it another way, but I think it might be a slower transition to getting back to being where we were while we respect other people's wishes to the best of our ability. So that's my initial thoughts on where I would lean for this.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. I'll be brief. As those who spoke before me, absolutely, the neighborhood schools is paramount to Peabody. I'm a Brown School parent. We just had a family that moved into our neighborhood. One of the reasons they told us straight up, is because the Brown School is right around the corner. So the Center School being reopened, I think is going to be paramount. It's important for everybody. It's important to the identity of Peabody. But I do agree with Mr. Hockman, and I think it's going to be an approach. We obviously know we have budget constraints. We did do a lot of shuffling around of individuals and staff and students. We have to do this appropriately, and I think phase 2 is where I'm leaning right now, with the goal of getting to phase 1, but we're going to need a little bit more information as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my colleagues. I'll be honest, I feel like option 1 is the ultimate decision for continuation of our neighborhood schools. It does mean a lot to people that their children can go, in most cases, walk to the school in their neighborhood. And being able to keep the Center School online is necessary not only for that neighborhood, because there are new buildings going into that neighborhood, but also because going forward, and the mayor's going to get nervous when I say this, we're going to need that space, because if we proceed to improve all of our schools on a regular basis, we need to have the flexibility. I won't say the word swing space, but in a way, we will need that. And I do think it's important that we are able to utilize that school on a continuous basis as a neighborhood elementary school. I do have something I'd like to ask. When I saw the results of the survey, I wondered if many of the people who wanted to stay where they were now, if part of the reason was because they haven't been able to see or envision what the quote-unquote new Center School will look like. And when they left, it was in pretty rough shape. But if they're able to see it in the new improved, refreshed. If they can see that, that might help them to be able to make a different decision. And not knowing what it looks like, not being able to see all the improvements, even for the staff. I mean, think about it. They're remembering, no heat, leaky roof, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through the list. But who would want to go back to that? Even if you're told it's fixed. But seeing it might make a good difference. So my question, in a real long way here, is, would it be possible before the end of this school year and in time to make plans for the opening, could we have a time where you could invite the center school families to come back for a visit? Is it in a good state yet, or is there still a lot of work to be done over the summer? And I think that might help with some of the people, some decisions, and some people might decide to go there and leave where they are without having been a center school family.
Thank you. I wanted to jump in on this question because there was a statement I wanted to make, and this is the time to make it, and then I want to turn
I
it
know,
over
I
to
made you
Dr.
nervous, I'm sorry.
No, sometimes you do. You didn't there. But I will say, I want to be very clear, though, about expectations for the center school. Because of what we just did at the Welch School. What we did is completely transform the Welch School. I call it a new school because to me it is a brand new school. The center school is not that. The center school, what we did is we shut down to completely repair the systems in place. We did a great deal of asbestos removal, which was very time consuming, and there actually still is a little bit more to do, which could affect in terms of having people in and out of there. But there is going to be some improvements that you would see, the floor tiles, there's going to be new roof ceiling tiles, for lack of a better word. There's going to be some new fixtures in the bathrooms and things of that nature. But certainly there's nothing changed to the layout of the center school. We still have the very small gym. We are going to be doing some roof work as well coming up in the nicer weather. But I want to make sure that expectations are understood here as to what the school is going to look like. You're not going to walk into that school. You will see improvements as you walk in, certainly visually, but it's not going to be something that is going to, like you do when you walk into the Welch School. And I want to make sure people are clear on that. In speaking today to Jim Politano, our facilities director, I know we're getting ready to start in February some painting that will certainly be improvements, and then the drop ceiling that work is going to be taking place as well. But there's still a number of things. We've completed a great deal of work already. There's still a number of still much work that needs to be done, including the roof and some other areas. But I was getting nervous when I'm hearing, how the school is going to look. It will look nicer, but again, it's not going to be a dramatic difference when you walk in and see what the school looks like now as to what it was. Without question, it will be refreshed. I like that word. But I just want to make sure people's expectations are tempered. That's all. And in terms of seeing it, that could be a little tricky in terms of time frame, because I know Dr. Vidala would need to kind of have things in place in March. We could check with the facilities director to see if that's a possibility for people that want to see it. I'm sure we can try to figure some sort of schedule. But there is work that's going to be going pretty much through February that's going to be taking place there. Is it okay? Yep, Mr. Amico.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Mayor, for saying that, because I got a call over the weekend and someone said, it doesn't look like they're doing anything over there. And I said, we're not rebuilding this school. We are making it usable. We're going in and we're going to make it look good on the inside, but we're making it usable for hopefully for the next 8 to 10 years. And hopefully we hit the lottery, Ms. Dunn, so don't go anywhere. We'll be on that, the MSBA, hopefully. But
the heating system is improved. The systems themselves is improvement, and they will be better. Yes.
Thank you. So that's what I told the parent, and they said, oh, that. They were thankful for what I had said to them. But a couple of things we could do, and obviously the principal can make that decision when they return to the center school or whoever it may be, to maybe do something over the summer. For many years, the center school is known for its, welcoming the neighborhood. They have an ice cream social or something to invite everyone back. And that should be something that they can do. But on our end, I think what we should do. Parents and grandparents and caregivers have been given surveys. They've heard us speak. I really do think that we should have a public meeting, part of our meeting, where we invite the community in, and for them to, to listen or to just know that we've moved from, where we're at now. Like, we're still in construction or repairs to the opening. And I think we should have a meeting for the center school community to at least have questions for us in person, and just so we can, have if we can't have a tour of the building, we can have pictures, before and afters. I'm sure we're going to have that for the inside, and just have a whole list of items that we are working on, the heat, the roof, and just so they can feel at ease that, if they if they're uncertain of whether to keep their kid at the South or the Welch, to, hey, you know what, I live 2 streets over from the center, I want to walk my kid to school, I'm going to make a decision to keep them or bring them back to the center. So, just a thought.
Dr. Vidal, did you want to add anything to what I spoke about, or?
No, I can defer to Mr. Olympio, and I have a couple comments, but I can defer.
Okay, Mr. Olympio.
I've been waiting.
No, through the chair. No, I agree with my colleagues. It's really going to come down to option 1 or option 2, and certainly in the short term, I'm not sure how much savings there will be between option 1 and option 2. But I do, maybe it's wishful thinking, I do think as time goes on and neighbors start talking, especially the kids, I would suspect that number in the survey will probably grow a bit once, certain houses find out, oh, you're going back to the center. So I think there'll be a little of that, just self-sell of the school itself. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Dr. Vidal.
Great, thank you all. This has been a great discussion, and it was really important for me to bring this before the committee before we talked about the budget, because it's important to discuss this without budget implications, because we talk a lot about doing what's right by kids and making sure that we're taking care of people, and everybody made some really great comments, and obviously if the budget's not an issue, I mean we'd be adding staff everywhere and it'd be wonderful. But I think the big thing that resonated with me that Ms. Carpenter said was about options, and I think a community meeting is wonderful, and every step of the way, through COVID and everything, the more options we've given people in Peabody, the better results that we've had. And I think really meeting people where they are and giving them the options. We'll have some tough decisions moving forward, but I think that as we come together, we try to make decisions for the good of the city and for the good of all students. And I think that we'll do that moving forward. So I think the mayor and I will meet with Mr. Politano and our facilities team and really get a comprehensive timeline of what is expected, because that's also a big piece of this. We want to make sure that we can get the work done on time and that we have all the permitting and occupancy ready for the return to school. And then we can update, we're in constant contact with the families and with the teachers, and so that will certainly come into play. But I think this was a really good start for us and a good discussion, and we'll start pushing out some more of that information. All right.
Mr. Hockman, briefly, yep.
Yeah, thank you. Before we move on from this, just want to say 2 things. One is we have some residents here who have relationships with the center school. They've been sitting listening to us for an hour. If we need to suspend our rules, I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak if they'd like to, and I would make a motion to suspend our rules if we needed to. This is a kind of a special subject. It's not, a typical subject that we take up, and I'd just like to afford them that opportunity.
Absolutely. Counselor, if you'd like to say a few words, or if you'd like to come up and say a few words, please, the microphone would be open. Everybody in agreement with suspending the rules for that item? So please, sir, come on up. Yep. Just come right up to the microphone, right up over here, right in front of this table.
Very nervous.
You just please introduce yourself.
I'm Elizabeth. This is Tony Albanese.
Okay.
We sent our 3 kids to the center school. I called your office yesterday, and they directed me to call Mr. Amico. And we had a lovely conversation, and he expressed it very well. We had heard that there was problems maybe with the center school coming back, and we were, I felt compelled. It's a beautiful neighborhood school. Our 3 kids went there, and I have grandchildren that are going there now to the center school, and so they got, they're at the South now, and we expected them to come back. So then I heard we heard rumors that that may not be happening. So I wanted to investigate that. But I hope it stays as a neighborhood school, because right now she is in first grade. And, you know, when they go into school and in school, it's not the same. She's going to the south, but it's not the neighborhood. The neighborhood kids, things getting together. And she was not offered transportation. I have to pick her up. So my husband stays with the younger ones that we nanny.
It is a nightmare getting down Summit Street, and then, you know, having to park on the side streets around the South School. And I have to say, people have been unbelievable about not driving crazy, you know, because a lot of times you'll have 2 or 3 other kids with you, and they all stop. It's been, I have to say, that's been inspiring to me. But, you know, it is a nightmare getting around that area.
It's a 45-minute turnaround time for me.
Where our grandchildren
to go
can just
there
walk
and come
across
back.
the street to get to center school.
I used to drive to the back of the center school, like I did with my own. It's quick. Sometimes I have 2 other ones with me. But for me to go and pick her up now is 45 minutes, because we have to navigate Summit Street. And then to park, sometimes we're all the way down at Land and Sea. You're walking up there, sidewalks aren't always shoveled. And that street, now there's 2 lanes of cars, you know, along those streets, and only 1 car can really get past. I prefer her at the center school, at a neighborhood school, and so I hope that really happens and comes back to full.
2 other ones coming up.
This is wonderful. Thank you for being here and talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
Thank you so much.
Great.
I appreciate that you're all listening to us. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Councilor, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Julie Daigle, Ward 4 City Councilor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Vidala, and the rest of the committee for allowing me. I'll be brief. I agree with almost everything that was said tonight, and I want to be here. I'm really glad we had a couple people from the ward that came and spoke, because that's what I want to come and listen to and represent those people. I can tell you on my street, I've got a dozen kids, and they're all going to different schools, and I like the idea of a neighborhood school. Some people did purchase their property so they could walk to school. So I think I appreciate this open discussion. I'm glad you guys are proactive in having it now, and I'm sure now parents will start to pay attention. So whatever, I don't want to step on the toes of the school committee, but I want to represent the ward and do whatever is right for them. The only other point that I do want to bring up that just ironically came up tonight is that as much as it might be a savings to close a school or consolidate things, I just heard that some of the schools might be a little crowded, so it wouldn't be the worst thing to spread the love and open up make some space in the other schools. But other than that, thank you guys for doing all of this, and whatever I can do to the constituents and for the committee. You guys know where to find me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Back to you, Mr. Hockman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor. Thank you to the Albanese's. I just wanted to make one closing remark, and it's not directly related to the center school, but I don't want to lose the thought and the opportunity to explore, once we make a decision about the center school, an early childhood center. I mean, it really is something that I'd like to see as a committee member, for us to really explore and really, you know, put some work into developing because, there were conversations, the integrated preschool's there, PASOs are spread out throughout the city, and there are other opportunities. We haven't had Head Start in the city in quite some time since they rented some space at the Welch years and years ago. I would like to, at some point in the near future, maybe the end of this school year or the beginning of the next school year, really start exploring the opportunity of an early childhood center in the city. I think we'd benefit from it.
All right, thank you all. That was an excellent discussion. Dr. Vidala, do you have any more items on your report?
I do. We have some people online. I don't know if we want to continue public participation and then go to. I don't know if there's anybody online that would like to speak, or if you want to just go back.
No, let's just go back to the item. Yep.
Okay. We have one more item, and I'm going to ask Dr. Higgins to speak about this. We had a very exciting opportunity for some of our middle and high school students. We put on a leadership summit sponsored by PEF, and so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Higgins and let him talk about that because he really spearheaded this, and it was an incredible event.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. During the course of my work around safety for the schools, I go to a lot of workshops and things, and so a couple of big messages come out. A lot of what we're doing is reactionary to something that happens, unfortunately, and they talk a lot about, making connections with students, sense of belonging. The other big thing that I hear a lot from all walks of life is we have to talk directly to the students, and it kind of was a light bulb. A lot of us adults spend a lot of time talking about things, and not often do we get the kids together. So that kind of was the spark for this idea. And so very grateful to the PBD Ed Foundation. They provided us not only with funding to hire a facilitator, but Gravoc, Dave Gravel, very graciously hosted 34 students, 17 from the middle school, 17 from the high school. And we all gathered at Gravoc and kind of had a professional day together. And these peer leaders, which were identified, and I want to make sure I really thank from the high school, Mrs. Foster and Ms. Tanzi, and from the middle school, Mrs. Davakos and Mrs. Burke. And they have been working with the students during the course of the school year, school leaders, but also people that are willing to kind of engage with our students across all aspects in the community. And so it was the first day, and more importantly, I want to be able to come back in a few months with the next steps that came from that meeting. But I think the best takeaway was the adults kind of facilitated and almost took a step back, and the students really spoke about what they think that we need at two big schools. We have a big middle school, we have a big high school, and it was just really an honest chance for them to talk about. I wasn't in the room. I left. I asked them for their help and then left, and they just did a wonderful job of kind of brainstorming things that we can do next month, things we can look for in the spring, and even going into next year. And so with your permission, I'm hoping to come back in a few months with some of those students to talk about not only things that we can be doing for, like I said, the rest of the year, but going into the following year. But I just think it was a nice idea, very well supported. Treadwell's Ice Cream, Tom Gould, we had a lunch for them. They all came dressed professionally, and so it was really it was a wonderful learning experience. And like we all know, the students have so much to share. They have so much information, and so giving them that platform was really rewarding. So I'm grateful to Dr. Vidal and his support, and PBD Ed Foundation really stepped up to help us. So I will be back with more information in the months ahead. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the superintendent's report, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Thank you, Dr. Higgins. That sounds great. Excited to hear more. Okay. Open it up. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come forward? This is the opportunity under public participation. Seeing no one, is there anyone that would like to join us online, Dr.
Seeing none online.
Okay, thank you. We do have two written communications this evening under item 7. The first is the FY25 District Budget Quarterly Report, and the second is the Burke School Gift Donation Form. I'd open that up. Do we need a vote for item number 2?
Yes, if we could get a vote to accept the gift with donation after we receive it.
Great. So first we'll do a motion to Mrs. Dunn to receive both communications, seconded by Mr. Amico. That's a unanimous vote. And then Mrs. Dunn made a motion to accept the donation with gratitude.
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Subcommittee reports, let's roll through those. For any updates, education, Mr. Amico?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. Yes, prior to this meeting, we met with Mr. Blake and his team, start negotiations. It's a great meeting and look forward to some successful meetings ahead. Also, too, I'd like to defer to Mr. Rippon. He has a report for us.
Thank you. In your, well, two things, and they are somewhat related. I wanted to speak to the mid-year second quarter report that's in your packet and speak more specifically because there's a lot of things repeated, but we're further along in the year, so there's a higher level of confidence to where I think we're going to finish. What I'm handing out, this is something that was requested by Mr. Hockman. This is the backup for the entitlement grants, specifically rosters of people that are supported by them. And maybe I'll speak about that first because it does bear mentioning because this potentially could be a driver for fiscal 26, given that what we're seeing in the news with grant funding and the like, entitlement grant funding and the like, there's risk for 26. The first page talks about the entitlement grants, and in total, Peabody has received $3,643,781. In the second page, I put together a summary sheet that ties to that same total across the 7 entitlement grants. What's notable is, and behind that, there's the roster. Of roughly half, a little more than half, $1.9 million is allocated for salaries. The grand total is $1,900,430. That encompasses 59 FTEs. For now, I really want to focus on 47 of them. 12 are mostly tutors, Title I tutors. The other 47 are, of that, there are 8.5 professional staff, and the remaining, actually, 8.5 professional staff, and another 43 other staff, largely paraprofessionals on the IDEA, and we have Title I professional salaries, 5.5 FTEs, largely math and reading teachers, and we have on the IDEA a BCBA, a special ed teacher, and an SLP, and we have 1 para on the early childhood. The reason I mention this is the budget for 26 that I am compiling. I am assuming, and you know about assuming, but I'm assuming that the funding for 26 and the entitlements will be sufficient to carry the staff forward and to pay for STEP, Lane, and COLA. I'm anticipating, based on past experience, that'll be a $100,000 need. So to, level funding everything, we would need like $3.75 million in entitlements. So again, this was information requested and wanted to get that to you. I promised by the end of January, and here we are. Back to the overall mid-year budget projection. Again, a lot of this is repetitive, but again, we're halfway through the year. We have spent, and I'll summarize, we're halfway through the year, we've spent 41.37% of the budget. That's in line. What's also in line, and again, I was hoping it would get better, is health insurance is still projected to have a $900,000 deficit. That's with a $1 million offset. In that summary I provided, health insurance on these entitlement grants is slotted to $433,200. The remaining $567,000 would be slotted in food service, PASOS, integrated preschool is where the rest of that money would be anticipated allocated. Custodial plant, this is mentioned before. What I will say, I've talked to Mike Gingras, and he has assured me two things. One, that currently no salaries are being charged to the school budget. They are being charged to the facilities budget, and he is going to clean up very shortly what's in there. So that should be zeroed out by the third quarter. Transportation, the deficit is bigger. We do not know yet what McKinney-Vento reimbursement. We will get reimbursement in June. I just don't know what that is yet. We have asked, MASBO, MASC, MASS has asked for the state to supplement circuit breaker to 75% from 44. That's a $58 million ticket. If that gets funded, we would get $700,000. That would help a lot. At this point, I feel more confident in saying we're going to need a supplemental by the city. I think when we had come before you all in May, we asked for $96.1 million. We got $94.6. The difference is $1.5 million. There was a decision made to take a risk and hope that maybe the risk wouldn't happen to be reality. I don't see that changing. I do think we can wait until after the third quarter. We might know some more things. But at this point, I guess I just need to go on record of saying I'm not optimistic this is going to change. But, you know, that's where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that would summarize my report.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Rippon? School safety? Yes, Mr. Hockman?
If I may briefly, through you to Mr. Rippon. With regard to the grant allocation for salaries that you provided us to hand out tonight, do we pay any penalty for using any of these grants or any portion of these grants for salaries?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do we pay any penalty, or is there a reduction in the grant if we use these grants that you've identified for salaries?
I guess my short answer is, and I would defer to Kelly, these grants need to supplement, not supplant. That being said, a lot of work goes into putting an application, even though they're entitlement grants, an application of how the money's going to be spent needs to go in, and this is reflective. So any changes, I guess what I'm interpreting your question is, can these grants be amended? No, then I'm confused.
Can we use these grants for salaries without having to pay a penalty or a reduction in the value of the grant that we're awarded?
Not that I'm not aware of any penalty.
Yeah, salaries are an allowable expense.
Okay.
Yes.
And then moving on to the second quarter report and the recommendation for a supplemental $1.5 million allocation from the City Council. I can speak for myself on this one. I'm going to need to see a lot more as far as what we're doing internally and to cover that shortfall before I would be comfortable going to the city council asking for any additional funding. So we have some time to do that, and I like your thought that we wait till after the third quarter to see where things stand, but we also have time, half the fiscal year, to perhaps develop a strategy that will bridge some, if not all, of that shortfall. So I'll just make that as a statement, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Okay. School safety, Mr. Olympio?
Nothing new to report.
Athletics and wellness?
Everyone's having a great season.
Quality and standards, Mrs. Dunn?
Nothing to report this evening.
Parent and student advisory boards?
There is a parent advisory board's meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 7 p.m. here at Higgins, but it may need to be changed. So I'm just letting folks know it's on the calendar, but might need to be changed.
Okay, thank you. Building and grounds?
We heard the high school and the center school reports already.
Excellent, thank you. Special education?
Yes, on, let's see, February 3rd, there is a Zoom CPAC workshop. It entails mediation. It's regarding mediation. And then February 11th here at the Higgins at 7 p.m. is an in-person meeting with CPAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. City Council Legislative Delegation, Mrs. Carpenter?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Redistricting, Mr. Hockman?
Nothing to report.
And Performing Arts, Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. A few updates. Met with Mrs. Simmons today. The PIP pancake breakfast over the last weekend was phenomenal. He said they did a really good job drawing in families for attending. They had a really good turnout and helped their fundraising efforts. A couple of dates that we want to be aware of. High school band has their concert tomorrow. The Drama Fest home show, which is their big dress rehearsal before they start hitting the road for all the competition, is on these February 7th and 8th. They're doing Clyde's, which is pretty cool. It's based in a restaurant. What I was really encouraged on this one was we know that our students do a really good job pulling these together. But where it's based in a restaurant, they actually tapped and used some of our CTE staff to help them understand food services and how restaurants work, what they do and they don't work, so they can actually be really into this acting and utilizing the resources they have in our school, which I think is a phenomenal job at the way that our staff works together and make sure that they have a holistic view for our students. So that they're going to be coming up with that, the home show on the 7th and 8th, which they start hitting the road on beginning of March. Also for their competitions. A few other things that come up. Dr. Vidal and I have to have some more conversations about the string program and setting that up and what that's going to take that has not fallen off our radar from there. And at some point, we're going to be coming to you in the budget, had some conversations prepping for budget. We have a lot of instruments that are maintained at the beginning of the school year, but they need some maintenance plans throughout this year. So we're going to be looking at budgets for that. Things like the pianos, a great example of every time the weather changes, as it goes to humidity to dry, they change, keys stick, and where they're used a lot, and obviously from a lot of the great performances that we do, we're going to have to bring that into the budget to make sure they're maintained. One of the other things we talked about is the program at this school here, Higgins, is starting to get some really big traction here. So another budget item we're going to be looking at bringing forward is ensuring that the Higgins Performing Arts program has enough staff, enough instruments, enough support so that, like our sports, like our educators, it's a feeding system in our high school. We want to make sure that this program is able to grow, which is going to maintain and grow the high school. So we'll bringing those numbers forward to us as we get them and be part of our budget, so hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Okay, we have no items under new business today. Our next school committee meeting will be February 11th, 2025, 7 p.m. right here in the Higgins Middle School Library. Items for that can be handled in the usual course. And thank you. It was a good meeting. Appreciate everybody's work.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? That's a vote. Thank you.